spent the past few months writing this concerto for me. You just finished writing it. The ink is super fresh, and hopefully we're going to premiere it in April. So can you share a little bit about the piece? It's in 3 movements. Can you just talk about it a little bit?
Sure. It's a concerto for cello and orchestra. It's called Tell Me Again. And as I was writing it, I was thinking a lot about our families. In some ways, our families are so different, Estonian and Armenian, yet they share an immigrant history. And in particular, both of us, I think, had similar experiences growing up as children of immigrants, speaking multiple languages, being pulled in different directions in terms of our identity and our sense of place in the world. In particular, I think a really important part of both of our childhoods were the stories that our grandparents, to some extent our parents also told us, in our sense of our place in the world. So in the concerto, I thought of the solo cello voice as sort of a storyteller, a purveyor of a cultural memory. In the first movement, the orchestra is sort of has this flurry of activity. It's a bit like the outside world, everything that's happening around the cellist, and the cellist responds and finds a voice gradually through the movement. And near the end of the movement, latches onto one element of the sort of orchestral flurry that occurred in the first half of the piece, and decides to make that its sort of its main story going forward. In the second movement, the roles are a little bit different. I thought of the cellist as basically teaching the orchestra a song, and I wrote this melody. This was about the time that you, as in your string quartet, were rehearsing a bunch of gomidas, and I wrote a melody that begins sort of inspired by a gomidas song, this little sense of Armenianness to it, and it ends with a quote of an Estonian song, so it sort of transitions from one to another. I was thinking about the way cultures come together in fluid ways or in awkward ways, and I think sort of the interesting thing in writing the second movement for me was that I put these 2 melodies together to create this phrase, and then I wasn't quite sure what to do with it. And you'll hear that the cellist sort of teaches it to the orchestra, and it goes through the different orchestral instruments. It keeps getting repeated and repeated and repeated. But in the end, it doesn't go anywhere. And there's a middle section to this second movement that settles into this much more sort of passionate or maybe deeper music in a way. And it's actually a theme that comes from the first movement, that theme that the cellist had originally decided to latch onto. And I think that often when we are trying to figure out who we are or thinking about what our culture is, we're often pulled between these 2 different poles of something very calculated, almost trying to merge parts of our identity together, and then something that just flows forth in a more natural way. And neither is more correct than the other. I think both are parts of who we are as people and as artists. Thank you.